We're gonna go out and see if we can catch them on a crankbait. I love to crank them this time of year, and I mean the water temperatures are finally dropping enough that these fish should be pushing to the bank pretty good. I mean we're down into the lower 50s, you know, 51 to 53 degrees. But one of the biggest things is figuring out, are the fish in the creeks, or are they on the main lake? Are they on the steep rock? Are they on shallower stuff? And I always like to start in areas that give you a little bit of everything. I mean, you can see right here, we're actually pulling up to a channel swing bank, and then you've got a transition area right here, and then as you swing around, you basically are getting into a flatter gravel, you know, just mixed rock pocket. And it's really all about just figuring out what these fish want to be on, and then you can roll with it as you figure it out. But I like these bluff in type deals, channel swing points, places like that where these fish can push, you know, bait up into these deeper guts. These are the places they're really going to set up this time of year. And once you determine what the fish want to be on this time of year, you can pretty well run a pattern. So once we decide, you know, are they on the bigger rock, are they on the transition, are they on the flatter stuff, we're just going to roll with it. You know, basically we're coming off the end of the channel swing right now, and you can see when you look at the bank here where the transition starts. You go from the real ledge rock to the more mixed up broken rock, you know, anywhere from, you know, baseball to, you know, maybe you'd say basketball size rock. And it really is key trying to figure out what they want to be on. And the crazy thing is how much they can actually move just in a matter of hours or days. But I really like to pay attention to my Garmin, you know, live scope, forward facing sonar, and I want to be fishing stretches that have either timber, stumps, or brush piles on them this time of year. Now with forward facing sonar live scope, I mean, you can see the object you want to throw at. You can see fish, you can see brush, timber, big rocks. So it's really changed the way we go down banks cranking anymore. I probably stay off the bank a little bit further than a lot of guys. I mean, I'll set the boat out in 12, 15, 18, sometimes even 20 foot of water, as long as I know the majority of my cast is going to be hitting the bottom. Another thing that I'll do when I'm cranking, especially the SPRO rock crawler, the original RK55, just due to the depth that I can reach with it. I mean, you can see where this point sticks out right here, and there's some rock and some stumps and things out here on the point. I'm not afraid at all to throw, you know, out there on the very tip of this point, out there in 12, 14 foot of water, and being able to hit that depth with this RK55 is really important. One of the other things that I don't normally do this time of year is waste a lot of time fishing through the pockets. I mean, I want to fish the high percentage zones, and that's either going to be a point, a channel swing, a transition area, or something like that. Just don't get caught up just fishing through pockets, because it'll cost you. See right here, this point really comes out right here the way I've got my unit shaded, and what I'm trying to do is fish these contours where you've got a little bit sharper contour. You got a real flat point that comes out, but then it falls off real hard right here, and even over here on this side of it, it rolls a little bit harder. One of the other things that's, you know, really important to me as far as cranking any time is making sure you're using the appropriate line. The line size that I'm going to use is all about the depth that I'm trying to reach with this crankbait. I mean, if I'm wanting to get this bait out there in 12, 14 foot of water like it's capable of doing, I'm generally going to be throwing 10 or 12 pound Sunline FC crank. Or a comparable monofilament, Sunline Supernatural. When the water temperatures really get cold, a lot of times I'll throw Supernatural just for that extra stretch. These fish are lethargic in this cooler water, and they may not be feeding real well, they may not be getting the bait well, and just that added stretch that either monofilament or Sunline FC crank give you is going to help you catch and land more fish. One of the biggest things that I think a lot of people overlook when it comes to cranking is making sure they match the line to the depth that they're wanting to reach with their baits. And I mean, you can see this is my utility bag that I carry in the boat day in, day out. And I've got 10, 12, 14, and 16 FC crank. And the reason that I've got all of these different weights is to be able to change the depths of these baits. If I'm catching them on a 55, something that really is creating a lot of, you know, commotion in the water, and I want to continue throwing that bait, I can size my line up and I can keep that bait in a more fishable manner by upsizing the line. I'm back in a creek now. I mean, we're basically on, again, one of those more channel swing defined type banks. This is where the creek comes out of the back of the creek and actually swings up against the bank. But you can see right here, we've got that transition area, and then you've got that flatter area that I said that I like to really focus on. So I'm putting ourselves in a position where we can fish three basically different types of situations in a really short period of time, rather than just getting in a creek, putting the trolling motor down and taking off fishing. I'm always focusing on those areas where fish have that deep water close to where they're feeding so they can access it quick. Not saying they don't ever get on those long flat points, but you'll notice that generally when they do get on those long flat points and long flat banks and flats, they typically really feed well in those areas where it's closest to the deep water. I don't mind fishing out of the wind a little bit first thing in the mornings. I mean, as the sun really gets high in the sky, I don't necessarily, I want to try to fish more of the shaded areas, places where you are taking advantage of some shade. And, but I don't mind it being a little bit slick, you know. I mean, these fish are up there to feed. And a lot of times it doesn't matter this time of year if it's slick first thing in the morning. As the day progresses and the sun gets higher, I definitely like to stay in the wind more. There's one right there. Stay down, darling. As I said, even in these calm conditions with some shadows on the water, you generally can catch some this time of year. The water temperature gets cool enough and they're gonna get up there and ease around a little bit. That's a largemouth, isn't it? Stay down, stay down, stay down. Nothing wrong with that fish at all. That is the kind that I love to catch. Starting to fatten up good now. A few weeks ago they were not real healthy looking, but they are starting to fatten up. You can see he absolutely swallowed that RK55. Get the pliers out. Get him off of there. But, I mean, that's a good start. I mean, you know, catch fish like that and add a 4 or 5 pounder to the bag and you've got you a good table rock bag. Anytime I'm fishing these light wind, clear water situations, I want to be throwing a bait that's pretty translucent. This is actually Phantom watermelon. And it allows the fish to not get a good look at the bait. And basically, you know, I had the boat sitting out here in about 14, 15 foot of water, throwing right here where the little break is. And right here's the rock pile with those fish. You can see them up there swimming around on it. I mean, you can see those fish right there, right there. And basically, it's just a rock pile right in the middle of a little gravel bowl. And they absolutely love to get on stuff like that. So many people get tied up just doing the same thing. And I mean, for me, when I'm throwing a crankbait, I mean, I want to throw the bait out there. And the first thing I generally do is I wind it down pretty hard, you know, 8 or 10 turns until I either see it on forward facing sonar get close to the bottom, or when I feel that bait first contact the bottom. And once you get it to the bottom, I mean, when I feel that thing start to load up on rock, I'll slow down and just almost stop my retrieve and pull it a little bit, wind it harder every now and then, stop it. Just do something to make that bait deflect and change direction, because that's generally when those fish are going to react to it. There's one right there. I absolutely love this little swing right here. I mean, I'm setting 18 foot. I'm throwing up there where I can grind the bottom. But those fish are kind of sitting out there on the edge of that break, and just like I said earlier, you're going to catch all 3 species. We just caught a largemouth. Now we got us a nice little smallmouth. Looky there. Nice little smallmouth. Come here, darling. He didn't get it very good, and that right there is the reason that I throw that translucent color. Just make sure that they can't get a good look at that bait. And it'll definitely help get you more bites in these clear water, light wind type days. Water temperature is still hovering in the mid-50s, you know, anywhere from about 52 to 54 degrees. So right now I've been able to continue throwing a higher speed reel. I'm throwing a Bass Pro Shop Johnny Moore signature reel. It's a 6:3 to 1 gear ratio reel. It's a reel that, you know, you can still slow down enough. I'd never throw a crankbait on an 8 to 1 gear ratio reel unless you're talking about burning, you know, a rattling bait or something like that. I want to throw a graphite rod when I'm throwing a crankbait. I want to be able to feel what that bait's doing, and a graphite rod allows me to do that. But the reason that I can get away with that is the action of the rod I'm using. I'm using a Falcon. It's a 417 medium action cranker, and you can see that rod is really got a soft, fast tip, but you've still got the backbone, so when you're casting the bait, you can really throw it out there. So basically what we got here is I'm trying to just kind of run with the pattern that, you know, I kind of feel like right now. I mean, we're coming into a creek. It's got a really deep gut. The banks fall off quick here, and I've got that same transitional style rock. I've got, you know, that bigger rock that changes to gravel, and I've got timber. This is one of those places that I talked about earlier. I love to fish these places that have timber because I feel like it gives these fish the access. If they're not up there feeding, they can just pull back in the timber really easily. And a lot of times I'll actually catch them out here in this timber on that crankbait, not necessarily on the bottom, but suspended around the timber. I really kind of skipped over the big rock section. I mean, I'm right here on the transition area. I just feel like where I've caught the first two fish that I've caught today, that they still want to be on this smaller rock. And I really don't completely understand that, if it's just a better area for them to feed on crawfish, or if they just want to be on that flatter gravel, smaller rock bank right now. I wished I could make that complete analysis and know exactly why, but there's definitely something to it. But generally when I crank these areas with timber like this, I'll actually kind of keep the boat out in the timber. A lot of times I'm setting anywhere from 15 to 20 foot of water, and I'm grinding that bait all the way out there through the timber, and a lot of times you'll catch them out here suspended in these pole trees. There's one. Just on the inside of that timber line. Stay down, baby. I would almost bet it'll be a largemouth, but I'm not going to be certain until I see him. Two more following that fish right there. See the glow? Not a real big one, but I believe he's a 15-incher, but there's actually two more fish following that one right there, and that's what you run into a lot of times this time of the year, is these little wolf packs. There'll be groups of 2, 3, 4 fish, whether they're spots, largemouth, smallmouth. I mean, they'll be running together, and you generally can get right back in there and catch another one pretty quick if you stay at it. That fish was basically sitting right on the inside edge of the timber line. Wasn't up there just between the bank and the timber, he was right on the inside edge of the timber. And really this pole timber is pretty easy to fish. Not very many of these trees have a lot of limbs on them. So, you know, basically you're able to wind your bait right down beside the base of these trees, and it's super easy to do with forward-facing sonar now. These fish are basically up here feeding on crawfish. I think they might follow shad up to the bank as the shad migrate into these creeks, but I think once they get up there, they're really hunting crawfish. And you know, that's the reason so many of the baits that we throw this time of year on these highland reservoirs are so crawfish related colored. So another thing that you really want to keep in mind is, you know, what depth you're trying to fish, and that's the reason we have 4 different models of the SPRO rock crawler. I mean, the original RK55 was designed to fish, you know, anywhere from about 9, we actually rated it 9 to 14, but honest to goodness, with 8 or 10 pound test crank or monofilament, you can truly get this bait down to about 15 or 16 foot. When those fish are a little bit shallower and you know, you still want that type of action, the 55 MD is going to be my go-to. You know, anytime I'm fishing water 2 to 8 foot deep, this MD is the bait that I rely on, and we changed the bill angle a little bit on the MD to help it dig a little bit better, and it's a superior bait when you're fishing those shallower depths. The fall notoriously is a big deal for smaller profile baits. See, I've actually got the 50 DD in my hand. This bait again is a bait that's designed to fish anywhere from about 8 to 14 foot of water. Little bitty bait that'll get super deep on the right Sunline FC crank. And then we've got the original 50 that's just the same bait, little smaller bill, and that bait's designed again to fish in that 2 to 8 foot of water. So think about the depths that you're wanting to fish, and make sure you match the bait to the depth, or at least the line size, because again, like I said, there are times that I've seen they'll bite that bait with the deeper bill, rooting it around up there in that gravel better than they will the MD, so definitely keep that in mind as well. So basically this is where we're at right now. We started off fishing Main Lake. We fished a Main Lake channel swing, 2 or 3 Main Lake points without really any success at all. Saw some fish, but the fish that I saw even out there closer to the Main Lake were all inside the point. Finally caught the first couple just inside, not a huge creek, but a creek that had channel swings up close to the bank, but gravel really seems to be the key. Pulled up to the second section, we've actually caught some fish on pretty much exactly the same type of deal. A little bitty swag in the bank just inside of Main Lake Point, so we're gonna go duplicate that and see if we can catch some more. I just really feel like today color is a real key. I mean, I've picked up a bait that's got a little bit more color in it 2 or 3 times today, and it's like they want this phantom today. I mean, I think it's just bright enough, the water's clear enough that this phantom watermelon is the one they want. I mean, there you got it. Just literally laid down that solid opaque painted bait, picked this bait up and instantly catch one. And that shocked me. I really figured that would be a smallmouth for sure. Maybe it is. It is a smallmouth. It's just not as big a smallmouth as I thought it should be. I was expecting to catch a 3-pound smallmouth, not a 1 3/4 smallmouth. That's still a nice little fish. And like I said, I mean, I think I've thrown 4 different colors now. And there is no doubt that phantom watermelon's the color. I picked up 2 or 3, 4 different color baits, I think now. And just literally laid down that natural brown craw, pick phantom greenback or phantom watermelon back up, and we catch one right off the bat. Not a giant, but it's a good one. Fat little dude. The window of opportunity lasts so much longer just due to the fact that this RK55 gets down to a good depth. 12, 14, maybe even 15 feet on the appropriate line, gives you a window of opportunity really from the last couple of brim spawns in the fall and catch fish basically from August, September clear through November, December until the water temperatures actually plummet. Generally, until that water temperature falls below 45, I can catch them on this bait.